Good day, everybody. It's Andrew with the East Orlando Chamber of Commerce, and I am here with Corey Gehrold with Insight Marketing for increasing employee engagement at medical practices. So he's with the Insight Marketing Group, but as I do with all of ours, we want to do a little bit of recognition today, and we want to recognize PowerNet, who is powering all of our virtual events. So if you're interested in anything that PowerNet has, give us a holler or contact us or look them up on our website, on our directory. They can power you up for great deals for whatever it may be that you need on your internet and your virtual meetings. But I also want to recognize our trustee members, which are Advent Health, Avalon Park Group, Avalon Insurance Services, Duke Energy, Fairwinds Credit Union, Great Florida Insurance of Hunters Creek, the Orlando Law Group, Orlando Health, Suburban Land Reserve. And these folks are great stakeholders within the community and great investors within the chamber, and we want to say thank you and make sure that they get their due recognition. But without further ado, we've had you on before, Corey, and we really look forward to having you here again, providing some great information. Whether you are a medical practice or not, a lot of these things can help engage even your employees, whether you're a business in the medical profession or not. So great tips that are here you can apply to many. But with that, I want to go ahead and give it to you, Corey, and give you the piece here. You got a great presentation, and we'll have this posted for everybody, and I will let you go from there. So welcome aboard.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks, guys, for having me first and foremost. And yeah, let's dive right in. So real quick, just about Insight Marketing Group. We've been around since 2006. We work exclusively with independent physician practices. And our whole shtick is that we simplify your marketing so you can run your practice. And that good-looking guy right there, that's a headshot of me. So let's talk about what's ahead, what we're going to talk about. So the whole point of today is the importance of employee engagement and examples of what's working and what we're seeing. So everything that I'm talking about relates to medical practices, but like what Andrew was saying, we can definitely apply these to other industries as well, but these examples are all specific to medical practices. And then we're going to talk about tips to engage employees at your specific office. So here's Ron Swanson with an example of what not to do. He says, I like saying no because it lowers their enthusiasm. So if you don't take anything else away from today, just don't be like Ron when it comes to engaging your employees, and you should be okay. So the importance of employee engagement, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I think we all kind of know what is important and why this matters, but let's run through some statistics anyway. So highly engaged teams show 21% more profitability. That's a good thing. 96% of employees believe showing empathy is an important way to advance retention, also important. Disengaged employees cost a lot of money. So $550 billion a year. Again, I think we can all agree that's probably bad. So to recap the last few slides, engaged employees are good. Nice and simple. Hopefully everybody's still with me. So engaged employees will also help increase productivity, improve morale, reduce absenteeism, and ultimately provide a better patient experience. And when we talk about patient experience, we're talking specifically about how patients come into your practice and the things that they are experiencing once there. So when you think of patient experience, it starts potentially online, top of the funnel. Someone may be looking for, as an example, like a chiropractor near them or a knee surgeon near them. And they're going to factor in online reviews and social media. And then when they get to the office, you're going to have a whole another set of factors, including, believe it or not, the office and the bathrooms, how meeting with the doctor went, the front desk. All of this comes together to impact the patient experience, and employees are a huge part of that. So all these things matter. And when we talk about the patient experience, one of the things that's going to make a big difference is online reviews. And online reviews and online reputation score leads to improved revenue, according to this study from Wampley Research. So again, the higher reviews and ratings that we have, the more revenue that we're going to get. And how do we get there? Having engaged employees can really help make that happen. That makes sense? Great. So let's look at examples of what's working. And remember, the fact that you're doing something matters more than what you're doing, said a very bald, wise man. That guy. Hello. All right, so examples of what's working. So this is something that we put together for a practice that we work with. Now, this one is specific to COVID, but what you're gonna see in here is staff and members of the practice are holding up a sign. Each one says that we're here for you. And we just kind of put this idea out there and said, however you want to do this, go ahead. You can dance, you can hold up a sign, you can all get together, and then each person hold up a piece of the sign. So yeah, we asked department leaders to go to their department folks, write this out, and then they were given the option to do whatever. We put this together, and again, this is specific for COVID, but it does not have to be. This is something that any practice can do at any time of year. And what we did, obviously, was engage as many people in the practice as possible. And granted, for this example, we had a very specific message that we wanted to get out there. It's very timely, but again, that is not to say that you have to do something specific to COVID or really anything. If you just want to get a message out there and try and engage folks. So all the way from physicians to front desk. This is in the AR department here, and that's one of the surgeons. So we tried to, again, just get as many people as possible to do this and have a little bit of fun with it. So this is from a different practice, same sort of idea. This one was actually submitted to us. And so what we wanted to do was, again, without words, drive this message home. And this one, specific to COVID, does not have to be, can be anything you want. This works really great with nurses, physicians, really anyone throughout the practice. In this photo, there's a couple of people from the IT department and some clinical staff holding up each one of these messages. So another great way to engage employees is, well, just to ask them to be engaged. So photos with fellow team members, which is what we're looking at here, as well as some patients and big and small moments. So a couple of these are from a physical therapy practice. And what they're saying is when someone completes their therapy, they take a picture with the main physical therapist that they were working with. So this does a couple of things. Number one, it's great for social media. So it's kind of a marketing win-win because we are then able to take these photos and market them. Of course, we have patient releases, so there's no HIPAA violations here. But also when we're taking them with providers, we are able to engage them and create a little bit of excitement all the way around. So it doesn't have to just be still photos. It can be videos of someone going through an exercise or going through what an appointment looks like, answering common questions. And again, you're engaging multiple people here because you have one, the person who's on the screen, and then number two, the person who's actually doing some of the filming. And if there's anybody else involved in the office, it creates a little bit of excitement and it's something different from the day-to-day. So it is a way to very easily, without a ton of planning, without a ton of work, without a ton of production, engage employees. Again, we have a couple of photos here from, this is from an ophthalmology practice, surgeon, a patient testimonial, and then a clinic and staff photo. And I promise that not everything that we're gonna go through today is all photo-based, but here are some more photos that really help showcase engaging the employees. And again, we're just saying a combination of a couple different things. One, we're positioning the practice as an expert and an authority. That's what we're doing with the patient testimonial there. And then the other two on the left and right of that, we're talking about, we're doing special thank yous back to the community and to the employees themselves. And so that's one thing I would say when you're doing this is, again, it doesn't matter so much what you're doing as long as you're doing something. So it's totally fine to create a post and then thank your employees or thank your patients. And that'll really go a long way. Again, here's a couple more photos. Perfect for marketing opportunities because as you can see in the photo on the right, so that's a that's the surgeon, and to his left is one of his nurses. So we're engaging employees, but we're also showing results. We're positioning them as an authority, and we're involving multiple people in the process. So here's a photo from a recent news story that ran for one of our clients. And I have this up because we engaged employees here because, one, that's not a patient. That's actually his patient care coordinator. We needed somebody to be a patient for this story. But also because the news crew was coming in, doing this sort of PR, it kind of breaks up the monotony, but the whole office had a little bit of a buzz because the staff had to be engaged to work around schedules, and then we had the news crew coming in, reporter and a camera. So it was something to kind of get excited about. That's a little bit different. And you know, they were in and out in 15 or 20 minutes, but people talked about it several hours beforehand and afterward. And then obviously we were able to run the story and then post that and have staff and folks comment on it as needed from there. So again, just another great way to engage staff and also do a little bit of marketing while you are engaging your employees. So in this slide, we're looking at some cause-related marketing. So this can really help engage employees and unite them. So on the top left there, that's a plastic surgeon, and his wife and his daughter were making these masks. And he's since employed or asked for some volunteers from some of the staff to help make these as well. And so the photo on the top right, that's a surgeon at an ENT group, and they're recognizing Nurses Day. So honoring these holidays and these healthcare observances, like Nurses Day, are coming together to stand against what they believe in, like the bottom photo there. Again, that's an ENT practice. This is huge, and it doesn't have to be some big grand gesture that you're doing. It can be something as little as like donating some food, or you know, doing like a food drive, or donating to a food bank, or just spending a few hours on a Saturday and organizing something for the employees to actually sort of rally behind and get behind. And again, this costs no money, and it is a fantastic way to engage employees and remind everybody that you're all on the same team and working toward a common goal. So another example of what's working, this is an intranet that we put together for one of our clients. And if you have a larger practice, I would say that this works very well. One, it helps spread information as needed. So as you can see, we've got some staff photos there in the center, and we've got some ads on the left and the right with new updates for folks. So this works a little bit better than just a typical memo you might send, just a you know, paper memo or an email that kind of goes around. You see that a lot, and it's not very engaging. What's nice about the intranet is, one, it's totally customizable. So we can have any sort of documentations or forms or links and things like that as needed, but we can also measure and see who is going. So we know when people are clicking on things, or if no one is looking at a certain initiative we thought would be really popular, and it kind of gives us in the moment feedback, which is great because it helps guide whatever we're doing moving forward. Again, this is pretty easy to put together. So this is an intranet that it runs on WordPress for the practice, and they have the links to it. It's not a public-facing website, and it's actually controlled by a committee at the practice. I want to talk about that in just a few minutes. Another example of what's working are private Facebook groups. So I know there's a lot of pushback on having access to social media while at work in medical practices, but you know, truth be told, a lot of the employees, they're going to be on social anyway, whether you have a rule against it or not. So you might as well embrace it. And Facebook groups work really well for staff meetings and updates, as well as announcing new events and new protocols. And what's really nice is if you're doing some sort of live video. So again, instead of, or in lieu of, let's say an email or a memo that was going to go out, you can have someone at the practice kind of present, you know, whatever the information is. And as you can see there in that example, you can see who's watching. So if you have a private Facebook group, you invite all your employees into it, you know instantly who is actually watching and paying attention. It also allows for the employees to comment and leave any sort of feedback as needed. So you can archive this for later use, meaning if an employee for whatever reason is unable to watch it live, they can just click on a link and watch it later. But it is very interactive, and again, at no cost, you have a simple, engaging tool, and you can start that up right now. It also works really well to recognize employees. So this is from a separate private employee practice Facebook group. And we celebrate birthdays, we celebrate anniversaries, we communicate important information, and what we really try and do is promote engagements, likes, comments, news, notes. We want everyone to be in on this with us. Here's a couple photos of that in action. So Employee Appreciation Day on the right there. So one of the managers went above and beyond, and she was giving out little gifts and some candy and things like that for her employees, and decided to take the opportunity to also grab some photos and then post this on the employee Facebook group. And as you can see on the bottom right-hand corner, seen by 97, I want to say in that group, there's like 111 employees or so, meaning almost every employee saw this post. 22 chose to interact with it and comment on it as needed. But again, this is just a fantastic way to engage employees and kind of boost that morale when you need it. Another example of what's working is creating some sort of newsletter and or committee. So in this example, we actually have a newsletter committee, which is, I think it's like 6 people at the practice, and they come together to help create this monthly newsletter. This is a printed newsletter, and we have several stories in it, as well as some photos from either events at the practice or out in the community or things that are going on. And so it's printed and then dropped off at each person's desk, and then we have some extra ones that are floating around. So there's also, you know, some other examples are like a marketing committee, and you can, when you have a marketing committee, or if you choose to have one, you can ask employees what messages and images kind of resonate with them, and use your team almost as a focus group, because you know your perspective and what you think works may not be exactly the right messaging or the right images with who you're trying to reach. And if you lean on your employees a little bit, they are normally really apt to give you fantastic feedback. And this helps you identify leaders. So those volunteering for the committee, they want to kind of go above and beyond, right? And it will also help gain a new perspective on whatever you're trying to do, be that a printed newsletter, an online newsletter, an intranet, or just marketing in general. You get valuable insight from folks that haven't seen what you're doing. So you really get that outside perspective. So again, focus groups, team buildings, trainings, those kinds of things work really well together. There's that really good looking guy again doing some training at a practice. Here we're actually helping employees identify the why they come to work, and not just the what or the how they're actually doing once there to get the job done. And as a bonus, these sort of sessions typically turn into a little bit of a therapy session, if you will. And a lot of people take this time, especially because we're a third party and we come in this example, and they use it to kind of get some things off their chest and talk about action items or lack thereof. And we can really take that back to leadership and discuss changes. But what we did in the middle picture there's I want to say like 17 people, maybe a little bit less, in total for this 2-day session that we were doing. And it's all of the department heads and managers in the executive team that came through there. So we wanted to start at the top and sort of have a trickle down effect while we were doing this training. And speaking of training, that's a segue. And I can't hear laughter. I'm assuming that there is some laughter at that. So speaking of training, a great way to engage employees is on-demand and in-person training. So we've got a case study here I'm going to run through for the rest of the time. So this case study, it's online and in-person training for a large orthopedic practice. There's over 300 employees that took part of this training. And from April to August of 2019, we did a combination of online on-demand training and in-person training throughout the practice locations. We called it Patient Experience 2.0, the new approach to customer service. So the whole thing was meant to help employees understand their role within the practice and how their actions impact the patient experience. So we communicated via emails and in-office flyers and meetings and the intranet example that we talked about earlier. And we measured everything that we did. So we benchmarked employee retention, satisfaction, online reviews from patients, and Net Promoter Score versus the prior year. And because part of this was online, as you can see in the screens there, we're able to track engagement from each employee. So they were each given a login, and once they logged into the training platform, they had to watch a little bit of a video, and then they would take a quiz. And so there was multiple modules for this course, and to complete each module, which would come out once a week, every other week, the modules would come out. So to complete the modules, they'd watch the video, take the quiz, and then instantly we would know who logged in or how long it had been since someone logged in, as well as who watched the video, because you had to watch the video to take the quiz, and then obviously the score that they got on the quiz. So at a glance, as a screenshot on the left there shows, we could see who was doing what and when, and how many people still needed to complete the course. But we could also then dig down a little bit deeper and see where people were having problem areas. And we wrapped all of this together with a bunch of offline, in-person activities to help boost engagement for every member of the practice. So what we're looking at here is a lunch and learn that we did to kind of help kick off the event. This is with I believe it's the reception team. And we had them fill out this little paper here that says, my name is blank and my job is blank. A personal strength that I bring to my job, enter. And then I use this strength to improve the patient experience. How? So we had everyone fill these out, and then they got a frame to put it in. And we used it again as one, a marketing initiative, but two, an opportunity to have this big group of people come together where they normally don't get to. So there's interaction there. We're boosting morale, but we're also teaching them something that's tangible that they can then take back into their day-to-day role at the practice. And these were spread throughout locations and throughout departments. And a lot of the feedback that we got on this was these moments were some of the favorites of not only the managers, but the employees as well. And they said that because they are able to interact with one another and they never really get to do that. So it's an opportunity for them to kind of, in some cases, put a face to a name and really get to know the people that are on their team. So you can see that the frames from that previous slide, they took those and they took it upon themselves to post some photos and have some fun with that. And then you can also see where people are holding up the piece of paper there I filled out once we went through the session. So that top photo is posted on Instagram. So again, working as an outward initiative. But we also posted these on the printed newsletter that we discussed a little bit earlier. So it's kind of the gift that keeps on giving, because we were able to talk about it on the internet, talk about it on these newsletters, and anecdotally, as we were walking through the halls of the practice while we were doing this, everyone was talking about it, specifically this here. So what we did as we were going through this was we broke the departments up and we kind of created a little fun competition. And because we're able to see who is in what department and how well they're scoring on the quizzes, we assigned point values. And we turned it into a competition with a giant leaderboard. It was, I think, like a 22 by 36 poster or something like that. oversized poster that went into the break rooms everywhere. And then we hired, we tasked someone, we did not hire them, we tasked someone at each office to kind of man the leaderboard. So each week on a Monday, we would update the scores, and then someone would go in and change the scores as needed. And I'll tell you what, it was fantastic from an engagement standpoint, because everyone was talking about it. Everyone was ribbing everyone about it. And there was a prize at the end. It was like a gift card or something like that, but it was kind of good-natured fun. But people talked about this nonstop the entire time that this contest was going on as part of the patient experience initiative at the practice. So one week, we came up with these tokens of appreciation, and every patient that came into the practice got a wooden token. I don't have one handy, but they were, about this big, and this little card. So as they came in to check in for their appointment, the card said essentially that we're focused on improving the patient experience right now. And if you so choose, you can keep this token, or if you have a team member that goes kind of above and beyond while you're here, then feel free to give them a token of your appreciation. And so that team member or team members were then able to collect the tokens, and they would turn them back in, and each token wound up being like a chance for a drawing. So we did this for a couple of weeks, and the results were fantastic. Not only were we able to see an uptick again in morale and employee engagement, but we saw a huge improvement in online reviews for the practice. And I've got some numbers on that. I'll show in just a bit. We were not specifically asking for online reviews. We were just saying, if you had a great experience, then here you can give this token back to an employee. And it went gangbusters. It was great. So another thing, and this one might be kind of hard for a lot of practices if you don't have the wall space, but what we did when we started the Employee Engagement 2.0 initiative for this particular practice is we asked their employees, we wanted to know what the patient experience means to them. And we asked them to fill out a little survey online in like 5 words or less. Tell us what the patient experience means to you. And so we took those answers, and it's kind of hard to see in this picture, but this is actually a wall in the main office of the practice, and we incorporated as many answers as we could onto this wall from the team. So in this photo, there's a bunch of team members actually in front of the wall there. And so this wall does a couple things. One, we engage the employees by asking what patient experience means to them and reinforced what we're doing with the patient experience 2.0 kind of course. And then 2, it kind of became like an Instagram wall, if you will, and for the practice. So patients come in and actually take their picture in front of this thing because they think it's so cool. And so here's an example of that. And as you can see, we've got some of the words on there: healing, solutions, always listening, honesty, and empathy. And then we took the opportunity, since we had so much space, to also kind of do a mural of the practice locations, which you can see along the bottom there. You can see Winter Park, Lake Nona, Soto, Lake Mary, Sand Lake, Oviedo, and Castleberry along the bottom there. So those are just artist renditions of the locations. And this entire mural was put together over a weekend, and we were able to, we had the artist come in and take photos as he was doing it. So we actually got like kind of a step-by-step progress. So again, works as a marketing initiative to let the community and the patients at large know what we're doing, but we also engage the employees by asking them to actively participate in this, and then when they're at the office to take a picture in front of it and kind of share the story. And as we were going through the patient experience initiative, what we wanted to focus on not only was, obviously improving the patient experience and letting people know how they factor into the success of a practice, but we also used it as an opportunity to give away some swag, and to do a couple of gift cards and things like that. But some of the cool things that we're still seeing are magnets that we gave out like this. So, and as you can see in the comments there, someone posted that they saw this on I-4 on their ride out to Bradenton last weekend, and somebody else commented how true that was and how great it is, etc. So this is sort of like passive marketing that we don't really have to do anything. We just handed these out and people put them on their cars and they drive around with those, and it's super cost effective. And they got them just for, completing a certain quiz within the patient experience module. So for example, after week 2, if you completed and passed the quiz, regardless of the score, as long as you passed, you were given one of these guys. And so if you didn't, or if you were behind, because we obviously wanted everyone to complete this, so there wasn't really like an end date. We would just open up a new module when a new week started. It really did encourage people and engage them to get their butt in gear and complete whatever progress that they needed to catch up to get the goodie, if you will. And at the end of everything, we had a mock graduation ceremony, and we handed out a printed certificate. We took a photo, perfect for the intranet, the printed newsletters, social media, et cetera, et cetera. You can see how all this stuff kind of builds together. Rising tides float all boats, et cetera. And then there was a sticker on there with the honors graduate. If they scored, I believe it was 90% or above, they averaged that on their little quizzes. They were given that, and they had some keepsakes that they could use. We took a photo of that big wall, and we had that printed and gave it to all the employees so that they had something on their desk to remind them of the patient experience initiative. And so yeah, there's a picture of the graduation, and that is the director of operations at the practice with a couple of staff members as they're going through their ceremony. And they were given, there's the photo that I was talking about in the frame there. So everybody got one of those, and they also got the pin that they could wear or attach to their name tag so people could ask questions. And it's funny, to this day, people are still wearing that, and patients are still saying, hey, what is that? So still working. So let's talk about some numbers. So what we're looking at here is a case study from 2018 to 2019 again. So April to August, and if you look up here, we've got April to August. I apologize, it's not highlighted. But what you notice is total number of reviews, April to August, compared to April to August of 2018. And again, we were not asking for reviews here, but it is one of the things that we were using as a benchmark to success. And if you look at the percentage of positive, it never falls below 86% positive reviews. And most of the time, it was over 90%. And compared to, if we're looking at the same time frame, these numbers obviously not as favorable. So what does that mean? So in a snapshot, before we started to after we were done, we went from 4,500 reviews to 5,600 reviews, again, without asking for them. These are organic. An average rating of 4.1 at the practice to 4.2. That number has continued to grow since then. And we also added one more doctor, so that's why that 48 went to a 49, if you see that number in the group profiles. But the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, not only from patients. In fact, and I don't have the slide in here, so excuse me for that, but there was a couple of patients that left a review and then posted a photo of the tokens as an example, and were raving about how great this idea was, and how nice everybody at the practice was. And you got this little keepsake, and it doesn't cost a lot in the grand scheme of things to not only make a good impression on the employees, but also on the patients themselves. So some feedback that we got from this is from managers, because when we were done, we sent out a survey as part of the numbers and the benchmarking that we wanted to do. So we knew that retention was up, morale was up, and the reviews were up. So Net Promoter Score was also up. So we're feeling pretty good about ourselves. And then the feedback from the managers was also positive. So they found the initiative beneficial to the team. Over 90% said yes. 77% said it was easy to jump on the platform to check in and do some review of the progress. And that number is a little bit low, but I think that that's probably about right, because some folks have a hard time CCing everybody on an email. So if you're one of them and you have a hard time doing that, then logging on to see employee progress and kind of sort through some dashboards might be a little difficult. So something to consider there. But have you noticed any changes in employee behavior since completing the course? So about 50% said they have actively witnessed employees change and sustained change as a result of the course, which is fantastic. So employee feedback, did you enjoy it? 84% said yes. Did you like in-person or online? They said online. We've heard from multiple people that they like the mix of both and also preferred the in-person because, again, it was a chance to kind of network and get to know your fellow staffer. Do you feel like you're better equipped to do your job? About 80% said yes. And did the initiative help you understand your role in the overall success of the practice? And remember, that was kind of the main point of the whole thing. About 80% said yes, it in fact did. So this group also went ahead and they liked this so much that they've incorporated it into some of the other things that they're doing, including an employee handbook. So very similar to the employee engagement course. Now for new hires, you, rather than kind of sit down with someone at HR and then sign a book at the end that you never probably look at again, if we're being honest, they now get to, they are given a login, they watch the video, and they have a set amount of time to watch the video, complete the quiz, which acts as them essentially, signing off that they agree to and understand everything within the handbook. And because it's all measurable, we can see how quickly the employee is doing this, if they're capable of doing it, if they're watching and engaged as they go through the book. And it has been a big benefit for them. If there's also some sort of big announcement, we'll do something very similar. One, again, to help engage employees. So there was a change in the direct deposit role or function at the practice. So there was a little bit of a course that went with that, which is great. And then on top of that, we also posted that on the internet, and we did not post that one on the employee-only Facebook group, but we would have if it had existed at the time of that change. That change also went into the printed newsletter. So circling back to what we were talking about before, if you create a committee, you can engage the employees, which leads to a tangible thing that then, people really enjoy seeing themselves. They like the photos, they like being in the newsletter. So again, uptick in morale there. They take it home, they show their family, and we're able to get out announcements in a way that is novel and unique. And in the case of the online dashboard, we're able to measure progress. So it's kind of a win-win-win. So what did we talk about today? We talked about the importance of employee engagement, shared some examples of what's working. And I want to remind everybody that you do not have to come up with this big, grand plan before you take a baby step. So if you want to engage your employees, then start engaging them. The easiest thing that you can do is ask them something. So that can be, hey, will you grab a photo with me? Or I wanted to get your opinion on this. Or just really find out, whatever way you can, where are areas and opportunities for improvement. And maybe it's as simple as creating an anonymous survey that someone can go to and fill out and suggest changes. If you don't have something like that, start something like that. It doesn't need to be as big and in-depth as the case study that we went over. obviously that would be great if everybody could do that. But if you just, take that first step, so you're at least moving the ball and making some sort of progress. And that's one of the biggest tips to engage employees at your practice, is actually just sort of start doing it. And from there, you can build upon those programs and really help make a big difference. So that's all I got. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And if you have any questions, I would be thrilled to answer those. And if not, again, thank you. I've been Corey from Insight Marketing Group, and appreciate your time.
So Corey, there were a couple things that did come through just on here. It says you had asked a part here, is the internet linked to your website, or is it for the employees only? That was a part earlier in your presentation where you were talking on some of that.
Yeah, so it is actually, it's not linked to the website. It is totally separate, and it is just for the employees. It's on a closed network within their practice, so no one else can get to it. And again, we have a little bit of a committee there that helps kind of manage and post things as needed. So there's 2 or 3 people that are trained to post things on the internet, and they have to go up the chain of command, and they post it, and it's their baby.
Gotcha. And then do you feel that this would translate well into a chamber member environment?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, again, the key is to start engaging somebody, just start to engage them. So I think that works for businesses of all shapes and sizes. Usually employees, for the most part, what your employees will and will not do. And, they want to be a part of something, that when they work, or they're even in a chamber, if they're part of a membership, and you're part of a family. And so you want the family and the place that you spend a lot of your time to be the very best it can be. And people are willing to do these things. You just have to ask them.
Yeah. All right. They're employer reviews of the practice. Was there any time that you encouraged reviews from employees? Well, I'm trying to see how it says, these are employee reviews of the practice. So that was what you were getting feedback with. But then was there time that you encouraged reviews from the employees?
So yes, there was. So a bulk of the online reviews that we were getting, those were from patients. But as we were going through the entire process, we also took anonymous surveys from people before we started to measure progress. So we did surveys before and after the course, and then we would have kind of regular check-ins as well, where we would ask people what was working, what wasn't working, what they liked, what they kind of never want to do again. And then we were tailoring we had a rough outline of how we were going to go through the entire program. But, depending on feedback, is something in week 2 didn't make sense and everybody hated it, well, then we wouldn't do that in week 6. We wouldn't bring that back. But if something worked really, really well, then we found a way to pivot and adjust and include that later. So we did take employee and admin and management feedback and incorporate that into what we were doing.
So I know that we experienced this chamber-wise, but and to encourage feedback or to encourage the survey. And we all get them. We get the little tag on the receipts from restaurants or from our merchants. What did you do anything special? Did you help to try to help getting, because we've done surveys and we'll send it out for 3 weeks and we'll get a half a dozen surveys. It's how do you encourage participation? What are some tricks? Employees, that's easy. You kind of you can make them do it and give them time to do it, set them down to do it.
Right.
I need to take the survey. We've all had that with large corporations. But when you're trying to get that public to get their feedback and, give you stars or ratings, and you don't want to, I guess you want to get true feedback on where you're at. How do you incentivize, or what are recommendations that you say to get the participation in these feedbacks, in the ratings and things like that, as you have here? What were some of your incentives?
Yeah, so I think we were talking about a couple of different things here. So if it's specific to employees, like you said, a lot of them are just going to sort of feel inclined, or they're just going to fill it out. If it's the public at large, I think the number one thing is figure out what you really are asking. And then if you can, only ask that one thing, because after if someone opens, like what you were saying, from like a restaurant email or something like that, and it's a 15-question survey, there's no way they're going to fill that out. But if it's 2 questions, or maybe it's the style of question, we did have more success, I will say, when it was either a drop down or kind of, you could click a radio button rather than an open response, because people just don't want to type things out. So as simple as you can make it. And then I would say, depending on the business, don't feel bad about asking for reviews more than one times. If it's a medical practice, then you want to be careful about that. But depending on the business that you're in, it's okay if you have some sort of an automation set up to send out like a feedback survey. And then if you don't hear back from people in another 5 days, say, hey, last chance. And if it's not against any sort of rules or regulations in your industry, then you can offer some sort of incentive to help them, actually give some feedback. So small gift cards, discounts. I saw a restaurant recently that was giving out, I think it was like a free appetizer on your next visit if you responded. So everybody loves something free.
So just kind of going through it, is there a magic formula? I mean, outside of what you said, make it easy, 2, 3 questions, no more than probably 5. And if you do 5, probably make them quick drop downs or quick, easy things that people can get through it within, I'd say no minute and a half type thing, and then maybe a comment box or something.
Yes, exactly. And always be sure to be super specific about what this is actually for, because if the person goes into it knowing what's going to happen with their data, then they're more apt to actually fill it out. So if you say that this survey will help shape future events or the way that business is actually conducted, you're going to do a little bit better there. And check it before you send it on mobile, because a lot of people, they're going to check this email on their phone. And if there's anything that acts as some sort of friction or barrier that you can't do it from your phone, you have one chance for them to open this. And if they can't do it that way, they're not going to do it. And to that point, I would say, if you're allowed to, or if you have the functionality to send it via text, do that, because 98% of text messages are opened compared to, I think it's like 40 or 50% of emails. And depending on your list, some lists are better than others, and you may get 12% open rates, you may get 67% open rates, but across the board, text messages are like 98%. So if you can easily click on a link in a text, and then you have a nice, pretty survey that comes up. It's 3 questions. You're in and out in 30 seconds, and you know exactly what that data is for. Then you're going to see improved success rates there.
So if there's a lot of data that you're trying to collect, like, you don't want to have a 15-question survey or 10-question survey, is there a magic number of how many times you would send a survey out throughout the year? Just say, I've got 10 major questions I need to answer. Mm-hmm. Do I send out, let's say, this quarter 3 questions, next quarter 3 questions, next quarter 3 questions? Is that going to be too much for anybody? Is there a magic number of how many times, when you're really trying to get data to help your business grow or to help a practice or whatever it might be? I guess I don't want to you never want to flood people with too much, but is there a magic number or anything that you recommend with that? And is there platforms that you recommend over one over another for different pieces like that? And I mean, I'm not trying to get an endorsement, but just like what successes do you see where people have utilized those?
Yeah, so a platform that I've seen that works really well is Typeform. So they're very like minimal in their design, and it's very open. So it doesn't, because like sometimes when you see a survey and if it looks overwhelming or it feels antiquated, you're not excited to kind of take it. But the Typeforms, they sort of guide you nicely down the survey, and it may or may not, you have the option for it to display how many questions it's actually answering. So before you know it, you could be like 6 questions in and be like, am I almost done? And then you see a little bar on the bottom, and the answer is yes, but you didn't know that until you were 6 in. and those are already recorded. As far as sending it out, again, I think that depends on a couple of different things. One's going to be how good your list is. So if you have, and some CRMs will do this where they'll actually score the contacts within the list, and so you can specify which contacts you want a certain survey or message to go to, and say, I only want this to go to my folks that are rated 8, 9, and 10. Nobody else is going to get this, because I know that these folks are going to answer each one of these questions and provide really good feedback, and the rest is kind of junky, or maybe the rest of the list only gets the first 3 questions in that first quarter, but you can kind of lean on this other list, again, depending on size, to know that the responses are going to be what you're really looking for.
Okay, and then how do you overcome objections to an employee engagement efforts made by a company? Does this ever happen?
Yes, actually, it does happen because depending on the medical practice, especially if they're a little bit smaller, they may say, well, we don't have time for that. Who's going to do that? Or the social media comment that I talked about in the presentation, where they say, well, we have a strict social media policy. We're not going to let employees participate on Facebook or whatever. And so we have seen some objections, and what we do to overcome that is we show them the data that having the engaged staff really does make a difference, and not some pie in the sky $550 billion number like I mentioned in the presentation, but it makes a very real difference in the patient experience. And we can prove that because we've done it before, and we've seen as these initiatives start to tick up, the reviews and the scores come right along with it. And the way that most people choose a provider today is, 1, are they in network? 2, how close are they to me? And 3, what are they rated? And it doesn't matter really where they went to school or how long they've been practicing, but if I need a gastroenterologist and he's 4.7 stars and within 2 miles and he's in my insurance network, well, great, I'm going to book an appointment. And so once we can kind of help people see how all of these things are related to the patient experience, usually they buy in at that point.
Great. Well, I think that's all we've got for today. Corey, some great information here. If you need more information or assistance, Corey is available for those, and he can reach out to your business, and or you can reach out to Insight Marketing and ask for Corey, and I'm sure he can fill that in. And like I said, you guys have been great with all the information and pieces you've been putting out there, and we've got your contact information is on our website. And if you have that, if you want to just share that real quick, how somebody can reach you if they have any questions.
Yeah, so the best way is through our website, insightmg.com. That's M as in marketing, G as in group. So insightmg.com. We also have a podcast that we put out regularly, the Dr. Marketing Tips podcast. So you can subscribe to that. And we don't have any secrets. We talk about everything that we do, and it's all there for the taking. So if you want to do it, then absolutely, we will help you do that. If not, if you just have some questions, we'll help there too.
Great. Well, Corey, we'll see you again. Thank you so much. Some great insight as always. We appreciate, and we'll have this shared for everybody. And stay safe, stay well, and we will catch up with you again. And thank you for your time today.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. It was fun.
Appreciate it.